Okay, hello everyone. I think we're going to go ahead and get started with today's webinar, and really excited to have you all here. This webinar is co-hosted by Chatly. I'm Lauren Hallanan, the head of marketing at Chatly, and it's co-hosted along with Jing Travel. So Peter, maybe go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Peter Huang. I'm the managing editor at Jing Travel. Thanks so much for joining us today.
So, as I'm sure all of you know, it's definitely been a rough year for a lot of industries, and tourism has been hit, especially the tourism and the cultural industries have been hit especially hard. But, you know, this is all going to end sometime, and we know that when it does, there's going to be a huge resurgence in travel, and especially for the Chinese traveler, which is one of the largest segments of travelers in the world. And I'm sure that once all of this is over, we're going to see a lot of Chinese travelers, all over the world. And so we want to start thinking ahead. What can we be doing now to really start to plan for that resurgence? And WeChat, is one of the key and most essential tools really for connecting with that Chinese traveler, that Chinese visitor. But setting up a WeChat account is really only the first step, right? We have to think about how can we optimize the WeChat account and the WeChat experience to really satisfy and meet the needs of those visitors. So Jing Travel and Chatly have worked on putting together two reports, which we call the WeChat Initial Touchpoint Optimization Reports for the destination marketing and cultural industries. And so today, Peter and I will be presenting some of the key takeaways from those reports. And then following that, we're going to have a wonderful panel discussion. I'm really excited about our guests that are going to be joining us. So we have Carly McCloskey, Assistant Director of Tourism Sales and Marketing for the Museum of Modern Art. And then we have Theresa Belpulsi, VP of Tourism, Sports, and Visitor Services at Destination DC. And then we also have Julie White, Marketing Manager at the Art Institute of Chicago. So again, we'll be hearing from them in a little while after the presentations from Peter and I. Also, another note, before I get into today's presentations, I would like to mention that at Chatly and along with our partners at Jing Travel, we want to touch on the recent announcement, the recent executive order that came out here in the US. For those of you watching, listening that are based in the US, we do recognize that this executive order may impact your WeChat strategies. And really require us to reconsider some of the recommendations and key takeaways that we're going to be discussing today. But at this point, the exact implications of the executive order are unclear. So in today's webinar, we really don't want to make any predictive assumptions about the effect of the executive order until we have further clarity. So that being said, I want to get right into today's presentation. So I'll kick things off by just introducing Chatly really briefly. We are what we call a WeChat experience provider. We create, set up, and integrate customer experiences that drive business results and are tailored for the China market. So we support brands through a number of ways, managed services, portal deployments, and leveraging our strategic expertise in the China digital ecosystem to help brands succeed in China. And we specifically focus on WeChat. So this report, or actually series of reports, we issued two reports, and we'll be sharing those reports with all of you as a follow-up to today's webinar. But the two reports that we put out, one for destination marketing organizations and one for cultural institutions, are based around what Chatly calls the initial touchpoints framework. We've created a series of reports. We have one for luxury industry, cosmetics, financial services, and now obviously these two for the tourism industry. So this initial touchpoints framework is specifically for WeChat. And when we talk about WeChat touchpoints, there are a lot of touch points, a lot of ways that consumers or users of WeChat can interact with your organization on the platform, right? We all know that WeChat is a vast ecosystem with a lot of functions and features, and there are so many different ways that a user can find and interact with your organization. But for these reports, we specifically want to narrow down to what we call the initial touch points. So the initial touch points are what we think of as the core touch points that a consumer will engage with within the first week, or even maybe the first 48 hours of following your organization's official account. And by optimizing these touch points, you're going to increase their engagement with the account, increase their conversions. So for museums and DMOs, that could be the chance that they'll actually come and visit your destination, that they will buy something from your museum store, that they'll book a ticket to one of the attractions that your DMO is promoting, right? And they'll also increase the chance of retention, the chance that they'll continue to use your official account. So these are the initial touch points that we focused on for DMOs. They're fairly similar for the museums, just some slight differences. We customize the touch points a little bit, obviously, based on the different goals that DMOs and museums might have for their WeChat properties. But again, if you review the report afterwards, you can look at these more in detail, but we touched on WeChat search, 48-hour journeys, the menu bar, customer service, and conversions. So, we have a short presentation today because we really want to get into that panel discussion. So I'm not going to go through all of these points, but I wanted to pull out a couple of key things that we found during our research for this report that we think will really help DMOs improve their WeChat strategies. Before I go over those, I do want to share that, this is coming from data that we found from a total of 20 official accounts from destination marketing organizations of all different sizes all over the world. We tried to spread it out a bit and get a wide variety of accounts to choose from. So those key areas for improvement, again, I'm just touching on a couple of them today. And if you want to learn more, definitely check out those reports that we'll share with you after the webinar. So the first one is searchability. And I think this is particularly important for DMOs because unlike, a museum, somebody might visit your museum, visit your cultural institution, and you might have a sign or a QR code somewhere in the exhibition where they will see it and scan it and start to follow your official account. Whereas with a DMO, it's highly likely that the consumer is going to try and research your destination prior to traveling, and the most likely way that they're going to find your WeChat official account or your mini programs is going to be through WeChat search. So it's very important that you make it easy for consumers to do that. So, when a user searches for your destination on WeChat, they can find a number of things, right? They can find your official account, your mini program, articles. They can see posts that their friends have posted if they've recently visited your destination. And all of the things that they're finding can be either from your official account, your brand owned properties, or they can also be from third parties, right? So that's something that we noticed a lot with many of the destinations that we were looking for, was that in many cases, third party information was actually ranking higher in WeChat search than the official account of the DMO itself. So here are the results from our research, and you can find that you can see that while in one area, which is optimizing your WeChat ID for search, the DMOs have really optimized that. Many of 95% of them did that. We found that when it comes to linking a mini program or having a brand zone, that none of the DMOs that we looked at actually did that. And overall, when just from the search experience, because when we were searching for these DMOs to research them for our project, we just found that overall, for many of the DMOs that we looked at, the performance in search was generally underwhelming. For some of the accounts, it was just a little bit difficult to find them. So I have one example here of an account that could use improvement. While we've called out Visit Berlin in this example, I do want to say that they were not the only one who had these issues. Again, several accounts ran into some of these kind of inconveniences, and we just are using them as an example of how you can improve the search results. So, when we were searching for many of these DMOs, you had to use very, very specific search terms in order to find the official account. And as a user, we were very persistent in our search because we really wanted to find these DMO accounts. But a regular traveler is probably going to give up a lot faster, or maybe they will start to use, an official account from a third party and not from your DMO's official WeChat official account. So these are just some of the things that you can think about when it comes to improving the search experience. The second thing I want to talk about is optimizing the first 48 hours and considering implementing a welcome survey. So what is the first 48 hours? Well, I don't know how many of you know this, but if your DMO or your DMO, your cultural institution, your destination has a WeChat official service account, you're able to set up what is called a 48-hour journey, which means that after someone follows your account, for the first 48 hours after they follow your account, you can send them an unlimited amount of messages. So you can set up what is similar to an email sequence that we might use here in Western countries. Somebody signs up for your email list and you send them a sequence of messages to tell them more about your location and destination, right? So you can do the same thing on WeChat. And with a 48-hour journey, you can also customize the journey and the information that a user is receiving based on how they followed your WeChat account and where they are when they follow your WeChat account. So if you think about this, from the perspective of a DMO, it would be very useful to set up different journeys based on whether the traveler is in China when they follow your account, which means that that they are still in the process of researching your destination. Or are they already in your country when they are following when they follow the account? So you want to give them information that will help them find the information they need now because they are already in country. So you can see I have two examples here on the screen where, one example, the welcome message doesn't really provide any information, and the user has to, start to poke around the official account to find the information that they need. Whereas the account on the right from This is Edinburgh as soon as the user follows the WeChat official account, they're given an introduction to the destination, as well as a list of recommended articles with itineraries that they can just directly click on the hyperlink and start to learn about the destination. And another thing that we would like to suggest that you could consider, this is an example from a cosmetics brand, but it's for their travel retail store, and I think it's very applicable for for this circumstance for DMOs, is setting up a in-chat survey. So with that first 48-hour journey, you can survey your user and find out, are they traveling alone or with their family? What kind of attractions are they interested in? How long are they staying? Maybe when are they planning on traveling? Are they currently there right now? Are they planning on going in the fall? So you can take that opportunity to engage them as soon as they follow the account and get a lot of information about the user, and then immediately follow up with information that will help them with planning their trip. The third thing I want to talk about is customer service. So we didn't really see, we saw DMOs making efforts at customer service, but for many of them, there was a lot of room for improvement because, travelers are definitely following your account because they're looking for specific information on your destination, or they're looking for inspiration. And by setting up, better customer service responses, whether that's through the general auto reply feature on WeChat, or creating a chat bot, or even having live support if that's something that you're able to do. We understand that's not for everyone, obviously, but if you can't do live support, the auto replies and a chat bot are very effective ways to efficiently and quickly answer user questions and guide them to information on your account that will help them solve their problem. So we just want to highlight, I just want to highlight an example here from Tourism Vancouver. They offered a couple of different ways to get in touch with them. Also, if a user sends a message to their account, they immediately send an auto reply saying, "We got your message and we'll respond as soon as possible." So we thought they did a great job with that. Dubai Tourism Board also had a mini program that had a chatbot in it, and when you ask questions for the chatbot, they immediately sent you answers with hyperlinks to, again, various itinerary recommendations and resources. And then the last thing I want to talk about is tracking effectiveness. So obviously if you are a DMO, you want to, you're putting in all this effort to operate your WeChat official account. And you want to be able to see, is there any ROI, or what can we improve? Which features should we continue to iterate on, and which features do we not want to pay as much attention to? And so we thought about what are some ways that you can show conversion, show that people are actually interacting with the account and then visiting the destinations that you're recommending, right? They're visiting your partner businesses. So we looked at offering coupons, offering online ticketing, or having some type of user-generated content where users can share that they visited your destination. I just want to show a couple of quick highlights. So one was from Singapore Tourism, and they had a ticketing link directly in their menu bar, and which connected right to the C-Trip booking site, which had all of their partner businesses, and users could book tickets for attractions without leaving WeChat. And another example that I'd like to bring up is from actually, one of our panelists today, Destination DC. In their mini program, they offer a map. They offer coupons for various partners and destinations, as well as address cards, allowing users to save the address and find the destination more conveniently. So wanted to highlight them as well. So that's all for my presentation, and I would like to hand things over to Peter from Jing Travel.
Great. Well, thank you, Lauren. So first of all, I want to say again that it is our pleasure to have a great panel of speakers from our Institute of Chicago, MoMA, Destination DC to join us today. We at Jing Travel have reported on their initiatives in the past and also recently from their broader China-ready strategies to more specific campaigns that they launched on platforms such as WeChat. So we'll have the opportunity to hear directly from them in just a bit. But before jumping into the discussion, I want to just very quickly highlight a couple of points in the report, just to set the context and get the conversation started. And for those of you who have not had an opportunity to read the report, you could visit our website at jingtravel.com. We at Jing Travel provide key analysis and regional insights on the latest news in arts, culture, tech, and destination tourism and more, and anchor them in our expertise in China and the Chinese market. So if that sounds like something that you might be interested in, make sure to check back. And we will also make the report and the recording available both on our website and on Chatly's website through our newsletter. So stay tuned. So as of 2019, there are roughly 20 million WeChat public accounts and around 5,000 WeChat mini programs. And it has more than 1.2 billion users, right? So while the overall user base continues to grow, I think it goes without saying that the competition in this field is fierce. And I guess for many who are considering the program, the platform, or just wanting to learn a little bit more about it, some of the first questions to consider, and I think particularly for mission-based organizations, are, the first question is, who are you as an institution or as an attraction, right? So what is your identity? And what can you offer that others can't? What do your readers or users really need? And ultimately, what do you want to accomplish? So these answers, the answers to these questions really differ from institution to institution. And some more well-established cultural institutions could leverage their brand partnerships. Maybe others have original content and distinct institutional narratives that others don't. But understanding the questions could help institutions as they really move into the next steps in terms of thinking about their WeChat strategies. So in the report, we try to identify and describe what a good user experience looks like on the WeChat platform. So because I think all the questions that I just mentioned are reflected on this platform, and ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about how you're interacting with your users on it, right? So a good user experience based on our report starts from searchability, as Laura mentioned. There are many ways that a user could find your account. And in what I would call at this point a sea of accounts and other information. And so as a cultural institution, you really need to make sure that people can find it and they could find it easily, right? And then a good user experience also continues in the first 48 hours after they follow you. So for museums, again, from the first message they read, do they feel welcome? Do they feel included? To the follow-up invitation that you send to them, we use the term conversion in the report. And we talked about a number of ways that you could keep them engaged and satisfied and follow up after making the initial contact. But really here, the other really important thing is we're also talking about for cultural institutions is you're asking them to buy into a story, right? A narrative, and building a positive impression that is consistent to you and to your mission. And just like meeting someone new for the first time and then talking about first impressions, the first 48 hours for museums on WeChat platform is very important for that reason. A good user experience based on the report also suggests that museums needs to be able to direct users to the content that they are hoping them to see with the least frictions. So you don't want them to scroll through pages to get to your latest exhibitions, nor do you want the users to have to click through tons of buttons before reaching your customer service or be able to provide feedback. I think you want to make sure that your priorities are as clear as possible and in terms of what you want to achieve on this platform and how you are delivering them, right? And also, last but not least, I think a good user experience really keeps users coming back to your brand. And from there, they keep coming back, and they migrate to other platforms that you have. So we often say, in some ways, WeChat is your launchpad to China. And I think it's also true to say that WeChat is your launchpad to other platforms that could really serve different purposes. So you're thinking about, from gift shops to live streaming, from mobile payments to ticketing and to e-commerce. They could all be connected to WeChat and to that core audience that you build up through your weekly and monthly interactions over time. I think there is no question that the pandemic has really changed the cultural landscape, both here in the States as well as abroad. And also it has really changed the way that people perceive culture and how they consume it, right? So while we're still not entirely sure about when overseas tourists will be back to the museums and to attractions, I think one thing that we're certain is that the efforts to continue to engage with them should not stop, right? And the efforts to continue to be open-minded and be innovative to find new ways to reach them and deliver the best of your institutions can offer should also continue. And so if anything, we learned in the past couple months, and this is also, in some ways, well reflected in all the examples and cases that we study in this report, is that there's a huge spike in terms of demanding, there's a huge spike in terms of demands from the users during this lockdown period for fresh, engaging, personalized, and relevant arts, destination, and creative, innovative content. And I think for museums as storytellers themselves and sitting on this treasure of content, I really think museums could create great experience for fans in China and then from all around the world at this critical juncture. So with this, setting up the stage, I want to open the floor up to our speakers. And for the audiences, please also feel free to put down questions and we will try to go over them towards the end of the panel. Lauren, would you want to bring the guests back in?
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Peter. And as you said, we're going to get right into our panel discussion now, and Peter will be moderating that. I just wanted to remind you, in case you missed the very beginning of our presentation here today, I want to remind you who will be joining us today on the panel. So we have 3 panelists from DMOs and museums. Very exciting. We have Theresa Belpulsi, VP of Tourism, Sports, and Visitor Services at Destination DC. We have Carly McCloskey, Assistant Director of Tourism Sales and Marketing for the Museum of Modern Art. And we have Julie White, Marketing Manager at the Art Institute of Chicago. So very excited to have you guys, and Peter, take it away.
All right. Thank you again for joining us. And so I think my question is, and then this is for everyone, is if you could just briefly introduce the overall China strategy at your institution and maybe go into details a little bit and talk about WeChat. Specifically, what is the planning process look like? How did it come about? And what are some of the lessons that you want to share?
I'll start first. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Theresa. I'm the VP of Tourism at Destination DC, which is the official marketing organization for Washington, DC. And thanks to Jeff and Lauren, and then obviously Peter for having us here. China is such an important market for us. For Washington, DC, it is our #1 inbound market, and you all have been since 2012. And so we've learned a lot of lessons over the course of the past 8 years. I've been with our organization for 18 years. So I've seen the entry into this. And then I would probably say just for the past 3 years, we've been working really close with Jeff and his team on really getting out with WeChat. And they have just been remarkable in helping us navigate, because this isn't natural process for us, since it's not like, you know, for the States, you know, it's a cross between Instagram and, you know, Facebook and all these things, and to make this platform work for us. And so when we entered into the China market specifically, obviously our #1 goal was to obviously educate the travel trade, because as consumers are thinking about coming over to the States, it was incredibly important for them to figure out how to get here in an economical way and be able to navigate such, you know, the United States is very big, and trying to figure out what their 14-day visit is going to look like when they come over, which is pretty much the average length of stay for China. And then over the course of the past 3 years, since we covered the travel trade, was really trying to get into the consumer and really going direct to provide some inspiration and a little education. When people think of Washington, it's always the monuments and the memorials and the museums and that first time experience. But it's really kind of diving in a very creative way to explore the city and the amount of time that you have. And so WeChat has been incredibly important. We started out just, you know, having our normal page, the mini program portion, and then diving a little bit in, as Lauren showed you some of the examples that we were doing for DC. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been a learning experience, but we've had some really great successes.
Great, and thank you for sharing that. And I think later in the discussion, we'll also dive into some of the contents, and then also talking about some of the examples that you just mentioned. And I know, you know, this is coming from as a managing editor at Jing Travel, we talk about a lot of these initiatives, and I think the audience and the requirements for DMOs are slightly different from the museums. So either Carly or Julie, either one of you wanted to share a little bit more about what this process looked like on the museum side?
Sure, I can take that first. I'm Carly from the Museum of Modern Art based in New York City. And again, thank you so much to Lauren and Peter for inviting me here today. For us, China is one of our top international countries that is visiting the museum. And we sort of think that we have essentially 3 museums. You know, we do have our main building here in Manhattan. We've got our Contemporary Art Center in Queens in PS1, but we also have this virtual museum online, where we know that some people will be able to visit on site, but we also know a lot of people are connecting with us in a virtual way. So when we were considering how to present the museum via WeChat, our thinking was twofold. We were thinking about how we could assist Chinese visitors when they were coming to the museum so that they could plan, that they could enjoy their on-site visit, they wouldn't have any language barriers. But we were also thinking about what we could do to reach Chinese audiences who may not be able to visit either in the near term or may not ever be able to visit, but who are still really interested in modern and contemporary art and learning from us. We publish a lot of original content on our website and through our Western social media platforms, and we know that largely none of that can be accessed in China. So when we were thinking about WeChat and how we were going to implement it, we were really thinking about how that would allow us to reach a country that's really important to us and ranks so highly with international visitation.
Thank you. Again, I think what you touched on, one of the things that came up in our previous report, and then I think this is a lot of people would agree with this, is MoMA really in some ways stands out in terms of creating its original content that's tailored towards Chinese audiences. Also at the same time, I think for, so this is for Art Institute of Chicago. So Julie, I understand that also there are a lot of really interesting initiatives that's been going on at the institution and then being reflected onto the WeChat platform as well as the overall China Ready strategies of Art Institute of Chicago. Julie, could you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. My name is Julie White. I am with the Art Institute of Chicago. And similar to Theresa and Carly, China is one of our top inbound markets. So we place heavy resources on this market. And we've been working with the Chinese market for at least the past 5 years. We work very closely with a local marketing agency called China Pro Marketing Partners. And they helped us to establish our WeChat account in 2015. We were able to launch our service account in 2017, which opened a lot of doors for us in terms of being able to engage with our visitors, both in China and in the US. Similar to Carly, we do focus on visitors that are in China as well as people that are actually in the museum. So we do offer, on the chatbot, you can add a keyword and it will send you an article specific to that artist or that artwork. You can put a number and it will send audio for our audio guide in Mandarin. So we're always looking at new opportunities through this channel. For example, we just launched our video channel, which has enabled us to really connect with our audiences. So we're always looking for new and exciting opportunities.
Thank you so much. Julie, you touched on one of the things that kind of really stood out to us is having this ability to interact and communicate with audiences. And so our Institute of Chicago has a live support function in the account. And could you talk a little bit more about the thinking that goes behind that and how does it work and how has it been received?
We want to be as welcoming, as inclusive, and as accessible as possible. So yeah, we are always manning our live chat and making sure that we are responding to any questions, comments, or concerns in a timely manner.
Right. So one of the things that probably come up in mostly in Theresa's response was talking about producing these contents that are inspirational, that people wanted to see, and then sort of address the certain needs that they have. And so obviously, you know, besides having a good interface and a good menu layout, these things are important. But I think for user experience as a whole, right, the content is also a big part in shaping that good user experience. And so I think this probably goes from drafting welcoming messages to follow up with personalized offers and invitations, to the weekly and monthly articles that you posted. So my question for everyone is, and then feel free to jump in, is what is your top priority, right, when it comes to creating content on WeChat? And how do you decide what content to put up? And do they reflect the needs of the readers?
Yeah, I think I can start us off with that one. We certainly think very deeply about what we are posting to WeChat. Of course, we have our prescribed visitor guide information, and we have our mini chat, WeChat mini program as well. But when we think about regularly posting and the content that we're putting on the account, we like to use a blend of some of the things that we're creating, original content that goes out on all of our platforms, with some things that we create and publish specifically for a Chinese audience. May it be a Lunar New Year celebration or a Chinese Valentine's Day type of celebration, or something that is just more dedicated around a Chinese artist or artwork. So we like to make a blend of things. And I think we've been running the account for a long time now, so we have some really interesting insights on what works and what doesn't. So we like to make sure that it's a blend of things that we know performs really well with things that might be a little more challenging or a little less known, so that we can continue to push the boundaries and provide things that people maybe don't know about and are maybe more of an educational purpose. So it is quite a variety of things that we put on, but it is thoughtfully planned out.
And would you say, has this priority in some ways changed during the pandemic? Because obviously, I think a lot of, particularly for a DMO, a lot of the on-site visits were not there anymore. But then the needs to keep communicating with the audiences, the visitors, are still there. So would you say some of those things have changed during the pandemic?
It definitely has. Certainly some of our content beforehand was very much focused on special exhibitions or on-site type of activities or events that we could put on. We largely pivoted to virtual content. I mean, we are a 100% virtual museum right now because no one can visit at the moment. So we have been publishing things like activities to do at home with families, films that you can stream, audio playlists that you can listen to that can inspire you and are based on some artwork. So it's definitely changed, but we've gotten really great feedback and really great responses. So I think all of this is good to take into account in your content planning. You definitely have to be nimble. You definitely have to be able to pivot to something else, but you start to gain really great insight from that.
Right. And for Julie and Carly, in terms of planning content and creating content and identifying priorities, have any of those shifted and changed similar to the DMOs, similar to Destination DC during this pandemic? If so, how is it different? You know, being a museum, I think the priority might be different. So could you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. The museum closed mid-March and we were closed until July 30th. So we really pivoted to focusing on our virtual offerings, including interactive tools. We have a online tour that families can make called Journey Maker that's available in Mandarin. We've been adding Chinese subtitles to a lot of our videos, and we will be continuing that as we move forward.
Yeah.
Similar to Carly, we have shifted our focus from permanent collection and special exhibitions more to the permanent collection. And our main goal is to educate our audiences as well as to make them aware of the museum, the artwork that we have, what they can do when they're on site. So we'll promote our visitor guide and our audio guide, which is not available at the moment, but we do have a mobile app in Mandarin that they can download and listen to a free Mandarin audio guide. We also have a pocket guide. Pre-COVID, we did private tours in Mandarin as well. So really catering to that audience.
Right. So I think one of the things that come up in your responses, in some ways, some of these initiatives or strategies are designed to engage with audience virtually, and then some of them are designed to, hopefully soon when visitors are able to come back and then there's that full traffic, those strategies can be devised to help them as they're coming back to the museums. So I think the next questions, and we also get this question quite a lot, is people nowadays been asking, how well the next month sort of plan out in terms of visitation, engagement trends in the museum or DMO sphere. While we're trying our best to offer our insights, we would also really love to hear from you and sort of what your thoughts are on this. So specifically, right? So what are your future plans in terms of engaging with Chinese audiences, and knowing that the on-site visit will remain limited in the coming month? Do you have any plans to produce new contents or launch new campaigns to keep Chinese audience engaged? And if so, what role does WeChat play in this? And probably we'll start with Theresa, if you don't mind.
Great. Peter, that's such a good question, because I know all of us want to know, when's the end? When is this coming? When are people getting back? Because all of us, between Carly and Julie and even any destination, we like people to come in and touch and feel our cities and our venues. But we know that probably for the next year, it's going to look just like, the Hollywood squares is what I call it, or however they're going to be engaged. And then, the next thing is trying to anticipate, are people going to get too used to it? And then when are they going to turn off their interest? And so you're trying to play with, how do you keep people inspired? And I know speaking from a destination that really is challenging, but we've switched, to where, we've been very engaged with people while they're here. I mean, we've, really invested a lot of money that when people land, they're on that map and they're going to our museums and they're eating in our restaurants and all of that stuff, to really kind of switching over to this virtual world. And I'll be really happy when I never have to say the word virtual again. But moving it over to that aspect, but from a, public relations standpoint, because obviously, we've got those challenges happening, but when they do come here, what is that going to look like? And not just from inspiration of your destination, but safety is going to be a big thing, and not just when it's okay to travel. It's going to be like that for a long time. And so it's working with, making sure that we're communicating out that it's okay, we're here, and now you're here again, and then this is what it's going to look like. But really tapping a lot into our KOLs. And so, those opinion leaders that really are going to start to be the ones that are going to be venturing back into our destinations, and some that were already here, but really kind of talking about the experiences a little bit differently now that they know that they couldn't wait to come back. And so I think it's really opening up conversation with people who can influence whoever their bases are in order to be able to tell those stories. And, I will say, Carly, when we first started doing WeChat, or even thinking about this, Momo was probably our biggest inspiration on how we were going to build out some of these experiences. And we're nowhere near as close of what you guys have been doing for a number of years, but it did inspire us to hire on somebody on our team alone just to handle our social media. And because WeChat, we do Weibo, and now we're actually looking at some of other social aspects of engagement as well. And so you guys really have hit the target and really been helping, I think, all of us as we've been Americans, as we're trying to navigate into such a different world.
That's incredibly kind to hear. Thank you so much, Theresa. We've really looked at WeChat as a really important bridge to the Chinese audience, and it's so nice to hear that it's been inspirational to other places as well. I think looking ahead for us, we're probably going to continue our strategy of making sure that we're communicating effectively all of our health and safety measures with the people who will be able to visit us on site, and making sure that they feel really comfortable with the procedures. That's number one across the board for us, no matter where you're coming from, once we are able to reopen our doors. But we also know that international tourism is going to take some time to come back, and not even just international tourism, domestic tourism is going to take some time to come back. So I think we have a plan to just continue a really dynamic schedule of virtual content, things that people have been responding well to, curator Q&As and all kinds of really in-depth feature articles that we might not have been able to spend time on before, that we now have the time to do and to publish. I think one of the really great success stories that we had, we launched our mini program earlier this year in January, which was when the US wasn't really dealing with COVID yet, but China really was. And before that, we had a pretty straightforward link to our mobile audio guide program, but with the launch of the mini program, we were able to either allow people to use it as a basic audio guide, or it could be more interactive for them. You could sort of swipe through works of art, sort of very similar to the dating app algorithm, if anyone's familiar with that. You could save, you could share your favorites, and then the more you explore and interact with it, the more rewards you unlock. So I think that type of model is really interesting to us moving forward, and making sure that we're presenting our material in a way that's really engaging, really interactive, and provides a measure of a real relationship between the user and either the museum or the destination.
That is so well said. And Julie, would you want to talk a little bit more about what the future sort of holds for AI for our Institute of Chicago on your side?
We will continue to maintain our current strategy and maintaining our presence on both WeChat, Weibo, and Luzhou, which we launched in October and has grown exponentially. A lot of our content is original that we develop for our Facebook or Instagram channels, and then we can repurpose it for the Chinese audience. But we will also custom create content that is specific to the Chinese market. So we look at specific holidays, upcoming Singles Day. We'll also have a major exhibition of Monet's work opening in September. So we'll be sharing that as well, so that our followers in China can see the exhibition from afar.
So you just mentioned this really interesting platform, Luzhou, the Oasis, and I think it's one addition touch points for a lot of users through which they get to know about your brands and what you're doing, your initiatives. Could you, for the audience who probably don't know too much about this, could you say a little bit about your initiative there and how is it connected to WeChat?
Of course. Sina Weibo came out with a new channel called Luzhou, or Oasis in English, and we are able to post directly to Weibo. The same content we'll post to Luzhou, so we're able to repurpose images, video content. So it's done really well for us. Yeah,
and I think it's such a great example in the sense that we often talk about WeChat strategies, but in reality, what we do on WeChat, as an institution, sort of really situates in a bigger digital strategy sort of pool, right? And so as there are many uncertainties lie ahead, either it's because of the pandemic with the visitation number down, I think all these are in some ways really good options for institutions to keep an eye out, and then just to again be open-minded and be innovative when it comes to approach. And then I think the other two things that, the other thing that MoMA and Destination DC does so well is, thinking about in this difficult time, or even just in a normal time, to pull off any of these large projects and really to be able to deliver to your audience. It's a collaborative effort, right? So as Theresa mentioned, working with KOLs, I think that's a really brilliant idea that could help to drive traffic, and then also to have that sort of local touch for a lot of the audiences. And then for MoMA, just having all these initiatives and then creating original content that's tailored to Chinese audiences, and understand what do they really want? And then this is also a really successful strategy. So we have about 5 minutes left. I'm just going to check in with Lauren to see if we have any questions that come up during the discussion, and then we'll be happy to share that with you.
Hi, yeah. Yes, we have had some great questions come through, so we'll get into the Q&A portion. So I've seen a couple questions come through. If anybody else in the audience has questions, feel free to send them over now. But this, I like. I'm gonna skip to one of the lower questions on here. This is interesting. So many of you have talked about kind of your virtual strategy, and we had a question from Mark Galdenfair, I think is how you pronounce his name. He says, have you done any virtual paid features, such as a virtual tour, a virtual auction, a virtual workshop? Yeah, he's curious, have you done any kind of paid virtual experience on WeChat that has brought revenue and engagement? Or it could be on another channel as well, but maybe just particularly for the Chinese audience.
We have not done anything paid through our WeChat channel, but during quarantine in China, we did host a live stream with ZaiArt on their WeChat mini program, and that was very successful. We had our curatorial team presenting our collection as well as upcoming and past exhibitions that relate to China. So while not paid, we did see a high engagement from that.
Interesting.
Yep, and we've kind of done the same thing from a destination perspective as well. A lot of times we'll partner with a tour company that's also doing some streaming from WeChat from that perspective, but we haven't paid for anything yet. I think a lot of these outlets are also looking, for some more virtual content as well. So we've been taking a lot of advantage of some of those opportunities that are out there.
From MoMA's perspective, that's a great question. I mean, we really haven't done anything behind a paywall as of yet. We're certainly looking at our options from that perspective in terms of what we could offer as maybe a specialized private tour for the galleries, something more customizable, tailor-made. But I think it's important, especially when we think about social media platforms, the line between profitability and accessibility. So I think largely the content that we like to put out on social media is something that can be accessed for all. And it's a bit more of a art for all type of mentality in that respect. But it's a great question. I think if we continue to be in a position where our doors can't open to the public, we are going to have to think really carefully about what initiatives could be revenue drivers.
Mm-hmm. And another question we had come through from Richard Whittington, obviously today we're very heavily focused on WeChat and WeChat strategies, but, we did just mention live streaming. Theresa mentioned that you guys are on Weibo as well. Julie was just talking about Luzhou. So we've been talking about some other platforms. Richard asked, are there other platforms that you are considering investing more heavily in, or maybe are currently, in addition to WeChat, also investing heavily in when trying to reach the Chinese consumer? I think it would be good because I think, all the different Chinese social media platforms really have their own purpose. And while, at Chatly, we really see WeChat as like that core anchor. It's almost like, your website, your customer service. It's really like the place that people go to find all the key information about you. Obviously other channels are very important as well. So maybe if you could all just touch on, in addition to WeChat, what is the, maybe one or two other channels that you have found very effective?
Yeah, and it's a great question that they've asked about, because even pre-pandemic, this was part of our strategy, looking at, okay, now, not that we've mastered anything close with WeChat or even with Weibo, what other social channels are out there? Because, as each one of us or any DMO is looking at who the personalities and of clientele that are coming there. So, you're looking at demographics, trying to, who are the ones that you can influence to stay longer or do different things, those core, looking at what avenues. I know like Little Red Book is a great example of something that we're really starting to explore. on how to really, how do we start to influence a little bit differently and tell a little bit of a different story. So that's just one example that we've been adding to our research list over the past couple of months.
Great. And either of you?
The short answer for MoMA is no. We're not exploring any other platforms than the ones that we are on now, which of course is WeChat and Weibo. We are a nonprofit organization, so with that in mind, you have to think about the staffing that it takes, the content development. There's a lot of effort that goes into building all of these things. So for our purpose, even if it would be a new Western platform that we would be looking at, it takes a lot of time and effort to build these out and to build out your audience. So from our perspective, we're happy to really focus on WeChat and Weibo for now. That's not to say we wouldn't certainly look at anything else in the future, but just given budgetary reasons, staff power, all of those things that we're all dealing with right now, we're really focusing on those two.
We are on 3 channels, Weibo, Luzhou, and WeChat. And at this time, we don't plan to add any additional social media channels. But as I mentioned before, we're always looking for new ideas and opportunities.
Definitely. And I think, as you all mentioned, I think that just like with Western social media platforms, you really have to customize the content for each of the platforms. You can't just be posting the same content on all of them. It definitely takes a lot of time and effort to have successful growth and engagement on the different Chinese platforms. So you definitely need to have the right resources if you're going to do it right. So Peter, did you have any other questions? I think we're getting we've gotten up to our time here today. So
I think we covered a lot of really interesting points, and hopefully, and as Theresa mentioned, just when they're looking at MoMA's example, it serves in some ways as an inspiration. And so hopefully, some of these examples that we or some of the points that we talked about today could also serve some kind of inspiration for the brands or for museums, for destinations who are curious about the platform. We probably don't have all the answers, but I think really, and I can't stress this enough, just be open-minded and be innovative, and knowing that there are a lot of people wanting that content. And then I think the question is really to find the perfect platform that be able to deliver that to them. So.
Definitely. And, I know we've mentioned several times today, but, Jing Travel and us here at Chatly definitely spent some time working on these 2 reports that we put out earlier this week. So I definitely recommend that, if you want a lot more details and case studies, and we also included examples from the accounts of all 3 of our panelists today. So if you want to, get a better idea of some of the things that they were talking about today, I definitely recommend that you check out the report. And I think that, we hope with the report that it'll give you some ideas of some things that you can work on while we are, like Carly mentioned, we're kind of in some ways a silver lining is that now you do have time to be sitting back and saying, how can we really optimize our WeChat strategy? How can we be creating more in-depth content? I think everybody prior to the pandemic is just very go, go, go. And now we can dedicate some more time to some of that, getting a really solid strategy in place for when things reopen. So again, thank you so much for our 3 panelists for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.